Under Nigerian law, treason generally includes levying war against the state. So already, these terrorists that have been captured, that are levying war against Nigeria, they are already committed treason. There is no way you can give them any pardon. They have committed the treason. There are evidences here and there that they are killing people, burning churches. That is treason. Then the another part of it is assisting enemies of the state, just like I said earlier. It's okay. You give weapon to these people that are killing us. You are assisting them. You have already committed treason. How can you assist people that are killing Nigerians? It is treason on its own. That is what the law says. If you say that the enemies that are attacking Nigeria, that they should be pardoned, it means that you are aiding and abetting treason, which is treason on its own. The Igbos are known for the truth because Igbos knows the importance of saying the truth, and they know that truth is life. That's why we don't joke with truth. And if an Igbo man needs something, he goes for it. He goes straight to that thing and, have the sleepless night that is needed to get that thing. That is an Igbo man for you. But before we continue, please, I noticed that some of us that subscribe to this channel, they did not click on the notification bell. In fact, I just discovered it through the chat that this is what is happening. And because of that, you don't get our videos when they drop. So the single most important thing you do for us then is to, click on the notification bell if you have subscribed earlier to this channel. Then if you have not, subscribe and click on the notification bell. And thank you for doing that. We are together. So let's go ahead. I am going to blow your mind in this particular video because I've noticed that so many people, they go on air, they go on social media, they say some things that it's not the truth about the Igbo man. So we are going to unravel these things one by one because I discovered that leaving these things like this without saying anything is not good. Some people will buy into them wholeheartedly and believe them. That is the dangers of leaving such videos. Well, we are going to start with the number one. Listen.
Number one, God did not create the old Eastern region. The British did. The British, and I've said it earlier, but just in case you're just joining us, the British had a Southern Protectorate and Northern Protectorate in 1900, thereabout. 1914, they amalgamated the two. 1939, they divided the Southern Protectorate into Eastern Province and Western Province. 1947, with the Richard's Constitution, they turned it to regions. So the idea of Eastern region began in 1947. It was not from God. It was not from eternity. It was not ancient. It was not created by heavenly hosts. It was created by the British in 1947 and it ceased to exist in 1967. 20 years experiment. You should be happy that they even allowed you to take what you did. And I'll tell you what you did with those 20 years. In those 20 years, things that belong to the Eastern region were dominated by the Igbos. Read the book by Ken Sariwa on the Darkling Plain. He claimed that 95% of the positions, opportunities in the Nigerian army went to the Igbos. But if you think that that's a lie, wait till you read. There's another document I want to recommend to you. It's on the Telegram channel. It's free. The document is called White Paper on Political Alignment in Western Nigeria. It was published in 1964. It was published in 1964. It was published by the NTNC Western Caucus. White Paper on Political Alignment in Nigeria, 1964. And you see what Igbos did. All these things about the idea that we are all South Kingdom is nonsense. So let's go back to this book. Why did I tell all of those things? Because they mentioned something here that you guys are talking about having your own state. And I remember that it's important to us for us to discuss how they got there. The provincial secretary of Calabar, or for Calabar, an Igbo man, called a mass meeting in June 1967 and addressed the Calabar people thus, and I quote, "You Calabar people say you want a state of your own. Let me tell you that by the time the federal troops come here to enforce this mad idea, there will be no one left but grass and weeds, for we shall have flattened your land and killed all you Effiks." From then on, the non-Igbos of the eastern region were subjected to torture, detention, all forms of human indignities, and even killing. In Asang, a town in Enoy division, where I come from, and which is just a mile from Okpo, my own village, all the inhabitants, numbering about 400, were carried away to an unknown destination. 2 women, one a relation of mine who had been bedridden for 2 years, were slaughtered in cold blood because the soldiers said it would be a burden to carry them along, and they were under instructions not to leave alive any person in town. On the way out, a woman gave birth to a babe, Ade, and was groaning in her travail. The soldiers bundled her out of the canoe which was taking them away, shot both mother and the innocent child, only a few minutes old. In Atan-Onoyon, another town in the Enoy division, the whole town was burnt down together with all the people the soldiers... I'll tell that again. In Atan-Onoyon, another town in the Enoy division, the whole town was burnt down together with all the people the Igbo soldiers could lay hands on. An uncle of mine was killed together with his wife and 4 or 5 children. The only surviving child is a girl of 10 years, her right arm severed, who now lives to tell the tale of how they were all lined up by the riverbank and shot. Luckily for her, she did not die and is being cared for by me now. In Ikorekpeyo, 3 miles from my hometown, the Igbo soldiers rang the church bell one Sunday afternoon and forced everybody in the village at gunpoint to assemble in the church building for a special prayer for the survival of the so-called Biafra. When all were assembled, the Igbo soldiers surrounded the church, set it on fire, burning down the villagers and shooting those who tried to escape. It is estimated that more than 300 men, women and children were massacred in and around that church that day. By the way, what I just read now happened in Port Harcourt as well, in Rivers State. If you read the book by Nebo Graham Douglas, he was the Attorney General to Ojukwu in the Eastern region before the war. The book is called Ojukwu's Rebellion and World Opinion. It's a beautiful day. I think we're giving a lot of gifts today. You can also get it for free. Go to Redomi Global on Telegram, join the group. You find it in the learning section. You can download that book as well. In that place, they also got 400 people in the church and burnt the church down. Listen, why? Because you have to assert authority. The people did not want to be in Biafra. What people talk about, and this is not because I'm trying to speak for South and everything, it's because one generation has to stop all this nonsense, all these lies, like, oh, we are brothers, we must allow us, because when the thing happens, it's still the same us that they'll come. Because once you take those people, which was what happened, the next thing in your head is to go to the Midwest. The next thing in your head is to get to Yoruba land. And that happened. If Biafra was what Ojukwu wanted, what on earth was he looking for in Wari, in Hugeli, in Benin? What was he looking for there? Why was he going to Ibadan? Someone said they were trying to get to Lagos. That's not what he said. Ojukwu wrote letters. If you have not read those letters, I could point you in the right direction. Read his letters.
Say something.
His idea was not to get to Lagos to talk to Gowon. We're going to deal with all this thing in January. His idea was not just to get to Gowon in Lagos. His idea was to take over the Western region, take over the Midwest, and in later, if you read the documents from that were captured from Biafra, the plan was also to eventually take over the Northern region. He wasn't just trying to get to Lagos. His letter to Victor Banjo was published in August of 1967. You'll find this in the book by F. Adetomo Ogunseye. The book is called A Break in the Silence. He mentioned how they were going to take over the place and appoint governors, just like he did in the Midwest. For a person who really wanted Biafra, what exactly were you doing appointing an Igbo man as governor in the Midwest? And as soon as they appointed a governor in the Midwest, guess what he did? He brought in people from Enugu to work in the civil service in Benin. Why is this important? Because you hate Igbos? Not that. It's because if you allow the lies to one group to fester, to go on, The one about you is coming as well. You just hear that we're going to Ibadan to just go and play with you. Just came to play, just play ping pong. They were killing people everywhere. They kill people in Akwa Ibom, kill people in Delta State, in Edo State, in Delta State, in Ondo State. And I'm not talking about their place. So if you really wanted your nation, why don't you just stay in that place and guard it? The point I'm trying to make with all of this thing is this. Don't gaslight us with all these things of, oh, we are brothers, we want to go with Biafra. If you want a nation, which is where this whole conversation started, so let's try and get back to it, because I'm already tempted to keep reading, so let's stop here. This idea that you want Nigeria to be better, but you also want Biafra. We're not really concerned about Igbo nation because you have brothers who are wearing tying two wrappers. Is preposterous. By the way, the idea of two wrappers, I don't like talking about it, so I won't talk about it. But using Nnamdi Kanu's rhetoric in 2025 for somebody living in Munich is actually disheartening.
Yes, you have seen that video, and I bet you that that guy is quite an intelligent person. So, but it's not just being intelligent and using it to to add some things. Let's face the reality of that video that he did. Yes, it's not that I'm trying to condemn his effort, but when it comes to straightening the facts, it is not out of place to do that. Yes, let's start with his first point. He said that Igbos dominate what comes to the southeast. At the federal level, that it was quoted that Igbos occupy the majority of the military. Yes, that is true. But then it was done on merit. It was done on merit. That's why you see Igbos in everywhere then. Because the British need people that will make things easier for them. Igbos easily blend with the British. The British were marveled with the intelligence of the Igbo man. And that is the truth. You can make your further inquiries. Then he said that he put it in a way that it looks as Igbos are grabbing the opportunity that comes to the southeast. One, to start with, Igbos have majority in the south, in former southeastern Nigeria. They are the majority. Probably you can say that the Igbos may be about 60 or 70 to 30 to other minority groups. And to now blow your mind the more, if you say that Igbos are grabbing what belongs to the southeastern North, where are other Nigerians? Where are they when the Igbo man were taking the majority of the Nigerian military? Where are other Nigerians? What really happened? You can see it is about merit and not about what the way he's trying to put it. No. Secondly, he said the Igbo people were attacking the minorities, burning down their churches. Look at an Igbo man, a Christian, burning down their churches. He later said that it is for them to submit to the authorities of the Igbo. Where are the pictorials? Why are people not saying it? Of course, today I know that the Fulani headsmen, when they attack, you will know. People will hear it, you will know. Even then, during the Biafran war, there are pictorials of what happened. They massacred everything. There are pictures. So where are the pictures of this one? You can see that there is a question mark there. Yes, there is a very big question mark from what he said. There is nothing like that. If there are something like that, at least we have elderly people that comes to this channel to watch. They will be in a better position to tell us if there is anything like that. Please, we are waiting for your response. Let's move further. We are just starting. Then he said that why did Ojukwu move westward during the war, moving towards Lagos? Why did he not stay on his enclave, that is the Biafra land, and stay there and protect it? Yes, during the war, there are strategies that they use to secure themselves. The Biafra westward push was more about survival and strategy than conquering Lagos. It was a bold move to buy time, reduce pressure, and gain leverage, not a realistic attempt to take Nigerian capital. It's to gain advantage and protect themselves. That is what really happened. Make your inquiries. Let's, don't leave it for me alone. Make inquiries. You will hear and you will see what I am saying. That is exactly what happened. And again, he said that Ojukwu installed somebody as head of Republic of Benin. Mind you that Ojukwu did not call Benin or Biafra. He said Benin is like a republic on its own. He said Republic of Benin. That's what Ojukwu called it. And actually, he installed Albert Okonkwo, he's a medical doctor, to be the head. Probably he has plans when things stabilize to leave the leadership for Benin people. If he has bad intention, he would have mentioned Benin part of Biafra land, but he called it Republic of Benin, just like we have Republic of Biafra. I really am not there to know exactly what happened, but this is what the history has. So we are done with that particular video. I have it about 3. More are coming because we cannot leave these things like before. We leave it and claim that probably we are doing business, we are looking for money. No, this time around, people face things head on. The Igbo man faced things head on and let the truth be told. Let's move over to another important video.
Now, let's look at the issue of referendum. In 1961, British Nigeria conducted a referendum or plebiscite. In 1961, remember we had independence in 1960. And so in 1961, British Nigeria organized a plebiscite or referendum. Why did they organize this referendum? Some part of Nigeria don't want to be Nigeria again. And some part of Cameroon don't want to be in Cameroon again. Now, the part of Nigeria that don't want to be Nigeria again is your Ambazonia, southern Cameroon. They were part of the eastern region as of 1961. They were reporting to the eastern region as of 1961. The Ambazonians complained that they are being marginalized. They are being oppressed. They are being dominated by the leaders of the eastern region, unquote, Ndi Igbo. And they were able to have their way and get the attention of the colonial master. And so referendum was conducted. Should the Southern Cameroon, the Anglophone, the Ambazonia, or whatever you call them, still remain part of Nigeria and the old eastern region, or should they join Cameroon? So each time they are deceiving you, oh, our Ambazonia brother, oh, we are fighting for Biafra. It's just the same way they are telling you, our Nyoma people, our Ikwere people, we are all Igbo. It's the same thing. You don't address the issue of the betrayal before then. You still want to draw everybody into your hopelessness. What a shame. And so, more than 90% of the Ambazonians, southern Cameroon, who was part of Nigeria, said they don't want to be Nigeria again because they are being marginalized, they are being dominated by the then eastern region, not western region, not northern region. A referendum was conducted. So Nigerians have the history of referendum. And then in 1966, after the supposed Igbo coup, the first military head of state of Nigeria emerged, which is Igbo man. You see, we kept quiet all this time. This problem continued to replicate itself. If we keep quiet, it will get worse then. And believe me, the Hausa and the Yoruba and other ethnic minority that make up Nigeria, they are not smiling now. I just need you to save the next generation of Fundibu. And that is if at all you care. If at all you care. But if you don't care, we shall see how it ends. That is why when we align it, and we see how everything started, it all starts with Igbo man. The first president of Nigeria, Igbo man. The first Senate president of Nigeria, Igbo man. The first military head of the Igbo man. And these same criminals hiding under the umbrella of Ndigbo, now trying to unite Ndigbo, they are always hiding, committing atrocity. Then they drag all of us into it. Now, what happened? At the end of the day, Thomas Johnson, Umunakwe Aguyorunsi, became the first military head of state in Nigeria. And so what he did, because each time we talk about Abdulsalami Abubakar 1999 constitution, Nigerians did not tell us that there was somebody who configured the constitution before the 1999 constitution, who first tempered the constitution that empowered the region. We say we want regional, we want restructure, but the British, the colonial master, let's call them terrorists, they gave us these leverages, they gave us this free hand to excel as a nation. Who did it to us? And so, Thomas Johnson, Umunakwe Aguyorunsi, now went back and destroyed the system of government which was regional, created by the colonial master. He practically removed the referendum. Umunakwe Aguyorunsi, Thomas Johnson, was the one that removed the referendum or plebiscite. Maybe he was not happy. How will Cameroon live? How will part of Cameroon live? And so I need you to get how it happened. So because of that encounter, which has made the eastern region to a kind of dwindling, by the exit of the southern Cameroon, he removed the referendum. Because he knew from his plan, what he had in mind, Yoruba will apply for referendum. Hausa will seek for referendum. And so they removed referendum from Nigerian constitution. Today, Nnamdi Kanu want to dialogue with Nigeria so that we talk about the issue of referendum. You want to dialogue with Zoo. No, just imagine, Nnamdi Kanu want to dialogue with Zoo. Igbo nowhere for climb tree. Make Igbo come down there.
Yes, welcome back from that video. And like I said before, if you have not smashed the notification bell, please do so and smash it now. It's not just enough to subscribe. Subscribe if you have not, but smash the notification bell and let's continue the clip. Yes, this one mentioned about the Ambazonians and the unitary system of Ironsi and every other one, but we are going to take it one by one and prove to them that enough of that propaganda, enough of it. So let's start with, he made mention of the Ambazonians, and I will tell you that the Ambazonians, they are located in Cameroon, as in southwest of Cameroon is where they are, and also northwest of Cameroon. So along that line, boundary line with Nigeria, that is where you find the Ambazonians. So listen to what happened. So who are these Ambazonians? The Ambazonians are referred to the separatists from the English-speaking region of Cameroon. They never mention English-speaking region of Nigeria. So originally, the Ambazonians belongs to the Cameroon. Okay? But what happened, I will blow your mind and tell you what happened later. On where the referendum comes in and where they were given the choice whether to belong to Nigeria or to Cameroon. So let's continue. So the speaking region of Cameroon, specifically northwest region and the southwest region, just like I said, what the Ambazonians actually want, what they want is that the Ambazonians movement is about seeking independence from the government of Cameroon. What I am telling you is, after telling you, you can go and make your research. Go and research, come back and tell me what you researched. So it's not enough these days to come online and say anything you want to say and disappear. Then you deceive some gullible people that may not want to do further research on their own. Even some Southeasterners might even believe him. You see, that's why I took out time, because this video is important and historic in nature. So I even urge you to share the video and also drop your comments. Don't keep this video to yourself, because this is the type of video that our people need to know. Share it on every group. Share it to people individually. Let them know the truth. All right. Like I said, they were seeking independence from the government of Cameroon, not Nigeria. Complaints of marginalization by the Francophone-dominated states. This conflict escalated into what is now known as the Anglophone crisis. The Ambazonians have never demanded freedom from Southeast Nigeria. They have never demanded freedom from Southeast. Their struggle is strictly about separating from Cameroon. Then I'll tell you about the colonial history. Parts of present-day Ambazonians were once under British control as British Southern Cameroons. In 1961, a UN-organized plebiscite is like a referendum. United Nations organized this and gave two options: join Nigeria or join Cameroon. That was the option they gave some part of the Ambazonians, not all, because of the marginalization. So when somebody is telling you a different thing, you tell him, no, this is not what happened. Listen to what happened. Then the Southern Cameroon voted to join Cameroon and not Nigeria. Then they were talking about Anioma. He said that is how he was trying to confuse the Anioma people. Anioma has ever been an Igbo-speaking area. It's them that decide to claim Bini to escape the wrath of the war, but still the war catch up with them as it catch up with the Southeasterners. So if you don't know the history of Anioma people, go and find out. Let them tell you that they are part of Igbo land. Ever since, even a banker in Edo State is Igbo. They speak Igbo, the language, me, I understand, every other Igbo person understand. So leave that part, don't even go there. Even it is the Anioma people that wants to unite with the Southeast brothers. That is the current event now. Okay. Then he made mention of Ironsi, that Ironsi introduced unitary system of government. Yes, he did. But listening to this, let me open up your eyes more. This is the shocking part of it. Ironsi introduced the unitary system to unite and stabilize Nigeria quickly. But it was seen by many as a move towards central control and ethnic domination, which made tensions worse instead of making it better. Then, referendum was not part of Nigerian constitution, or just like this guy said that referendum was part of Nigerian constitution. Go and verify Nigeria constitution before Ironsi came. Was there anything like a referendum there? The answer is no. There wasn't any referendum in Nigerian constitution. So if you are talking, you talk with facts. I am telling you the facts. Go and verify it. If there is anything like a referendum in Nigerian constitution, there wasn't. All Ironsi did was to change the federal system to unitary system, which he thought is going to favor everybody. But it backfired. So referendum was not part of the Nigeria constitution before Johnson Ironsi came to power. So he did not remove anything. You cannot remove what is not there. Then there is a place confusion came in. Let's continue. I'm going to show you the more what you need to know about this. Then before Ironsi, that's 1966, Nigeria operated under 1963 Republican Constitution of Nigeria. This constitution was federal, regional, as regions had autonomy. Did not provide for a general referendum system. There was no referendum in the constitution. Rallied on parliament and regional government to make decisions. And that brought to something I'm going to tell you towards the end of this particular, countering. I will tell you something, what the Constitution provide that is close to referendum. So the Constitution, this Constitution was federal, region had autonomy, did not provide for a general referendum system. Where the confusion came from, people often mix this thing up. The 1961 plebiscite, that's the one that happened in Cameroon, that Ambazonians own. The 1961 British Cameroon plebiscite, this was a United Nations organized vote, not part of Nigerian Constitution. It's UN that organized that one. It has never been part of Nigerian Constitution. So this guy that is saying that is part of Nigerian Constitution is a lie. There is no referendum at all in the Nigerian Constitution. So the British know what they did. They know who and who they made the plan and organized not to have such thing. But there is also a way out, which I said I'm going to talk about it. So even before Ironsi, Nigerian could not vote directly on national issues through a referendum. Decisions are made through elected representatives. Okay. Then what he removed was federalism and the regional autonomy, not voting system. You see? So the only thing that is closer to referendum, there is the first one, which is about boundary adjustment. It is there in the Constitution, which means that before you create a state, you can adjust boundary. Then the main one is that the only way you can actually get a referendum is by your representative in the National Assembly. That's why sometimes you hear them say, has any of their representative say that they need Biafra? Because they know that that is the only way that you can get referendum. You can actually get it. It is not written in Nigerian Constitution. It has never been written, but you can actually get referendum through your representative in the House. So, for the in the representative, when must go, that is the only loophole, the only way you can get referendum in today's Constitution of Nigeria, of which we are practicing 1999 Constitution. So, having said this, let's face the last one I have for today, and we are going to call it a day.
In 1957, between 23rd of May and 26th of June, a group of Nigerians gathered in Lancaster House in London. 95 delegates attended the Second Nigerian Constitutional Conference. This conference gave Nigerians the opportunity to make a decision about their future. Nigerians were represented by our regional leaders and government representatives. Although this meeting was to discuss the transition from colonial rule to internal self-government, we had the opportunity to include laws in our constitution that would shape our future. It was on this basis that Chief Obafemi Awolowo took a whole day to present his argument on why Nigeria should include a secession clause in our constitution. You see, during that period, the regional leader of northern Nigeria, Sir Ahmadu Bello, was threatening to secede from Nigeria. In fact, the Northern House of Assembly in March and April 1953 passed a resolution that the North should take steps to secede from Nigeria. This was because the Southeast and the Southwest regions of Nigeria were pushing for independence in 1956, and the North was not ready because it was less prepared for self-government, politically outnumbered by the South, and how the Northern representatives were humiliated and disrespected in Lagos. So, during the 1957 Constitutional Review in London, Chief Awolowo saw a need to include a secession clause in the Nigerian Constitution. He probably envisioned that a time will come in future when a certain part of Nigeria will want it. He gave examples of how other countries included such clauses in their constitution. The Northern People's Congress, NPC, supported Chief Awolowo and his Action Group Party on that motion. The following day, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, who was the Premier of Eastern Nigeria, took the stage to argue against including the clause in our constitution. This was one of the reasons he was well known as a nationalist and a patriot. In fact, he said that once we have a federation, we are indivisible and perpetual. This means we are together forever and ever. He also added that to secede would amount to treason. So the question was now whether we should have secession or not. According to Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, the colonial office came to their rescue. The British Secretary of State for the Colonies rejected the motion because secession clause will make the federation unstable. Nigeria was fragile and the British needed a viable and coherent state to hand over power to. This was how the clause was not included in our constitution, and treason became punishment for trying to divide Nigeria. Some people believe that if all the regions had accepted to include secession in our constitution, the British colonial government would have accepted it. But because there was an opposition to it, the motion was rejected. Surprisingly, there have been two major calls for secession in Nigeria from the southeastern part. The first was by Lieutenant Colonel Chukwuemeka Ojukwu in 1967, and the second by Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, who was recently persecuted and convicted to life imprisonment by the Federal High Court in Abuja. While this may seem as an outright disregard for the Constitution, it also raises concerns about the underlying causes and what needs to be done to address them. When Sir Ahmadu Bello and the Northern House of Representatives passed a resolution to secede from Nigeria, certain conditions were given to resolve it. If those concerns were not resolved, they would have gone ahead to secede. The colonial administration met those conditions. For each call for secession, it is important for the agitators to do the same. They should do so within the ambit of the law. They should list their grievances and be open to dialogue. It is also important for the government, both the state government and the federal government, to listen, negotiate, and act on it, instead of only treating it as a criminal offense. Bye, guys.
Yes, this particular one that you listen to, he has a gentle tone, and it's more of a way to solve the problem, even though he was able to outline what really happened or what can amount to treason. But we are going to go into the details one after the other, and I'm going to show you more things that you will say, wow. So it means that some of these government officials have already committed treason based on Nigerian constitution. That's what it means, but I'm coming to that. Let's take it one by one, because I like the way the guy spoke. He said that there was a solution, there was a meeting, there was a discussion after when the northern part of Nigeria want to succeed. They were listening to, and the problem resolved. So that is the thing. If the Southeast is agitating for secession, the government of Nigeria should have called the meeting and resolved the problem just like the way they did in the North. And you see, all these things will not happen again. The call for secession is because of marginalization. You don't treat these people well, and they will want to go now if you don't treat them well the way you treat others. So the problem is more on the part of the government. In fact, the Southeast, they are supposed to take the federal government to court for not treating them well, if that is the case. Because there are cases of marginalization. Okay, now we're talking about revamping the port. Only Lagos that has a right of revamping ports, the ports. There is no other place we have port, and the two agreement was just based on Lagos. The two contracts was signed for the Lagos two ports. For what now? At least one for another place and one for Lagos. That is when things are being done the right way, and people will not be aggrieved. So the government caused some of this aggrieved, situation that some part of Nigerians are suffering, especially the Southeast. Then he started with that the North was less prepared for self-determination, for self-government. Then I was like, who was governing the North before the British came? Were they not governing themselves? What is the problem with us self? So because the white man came and they want to leave, and all the time we hear that the North are not prepared, and they are not prepared. They told Zeke to wait. Who was governing them before the British came? Were they not governing themselves? So some things looks somehow when you hear them. So let's start with the idea of including secession in the constitution. He said that Awolowo asked for secession to be included, and the other people asked for secession to be included. It was Zeke that said no. Well, that could be true, but I really don't know why it is like that. And I bet you that if Zeke is alive today, he will say he's going to approve secession. If Zeke is alive today and see what is happening to Nigeria and Nigerians at large, in fact, Igbos are less the people that are suffering from this group kidnapping and attacks that are happening all over Nigeria. Igbos are not even hearing it more than other Nigeria. So if Zeke is alive today, he will approve it. One hand. He's going to approve it, and that one I'm very, very sure of it. And looking at it at the other angle, if they were advocating for secessive clause to be included in the Constitution, it means that already there is foundational doubt. There is foundational doubt in them if Nigeria is going to succeed. That's why they were, putting secession there, meaning that Nigeria is formed on the basis of doubt and the wrong footing. Yes, there is already doubt, and it was Zeke that doesn't have doubt in him. Say, no, let's do this thing like this. But others have already started planning doubts in them. That is the meaning of that. Well, I said we are going to be taking it one by one, and we are going to, look into these issues that he mentioned. Then the Constitution itself does not explicitly say secession amounts to treason. No, according to what he said that secession amounts to treason. There is nowhere you see it in the Nigerian Constitution that they said explicitly said secession amounts to treason. And I'm going to tell you exactly what is there in the Constitution. What the Constitution says is that the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, emphasized that Nigeria is one indivisible and indissoluble sovereign state. That does not mention secession as a legal option, does not directly define treason or its punishment in details. Where treason is defined, let me tell you where treason is defined in Nigeria to tell you how some government officials, just like the one that happened recently, if we are defending the enemies of the country, it is treason. When they came and tell you that let's leave terrorists, that they are one of us, you are defending the enemy of the country, which amounts to treason. Here it's here. I'm going to read it for you. Treason is defined under the Criminal Code Act and Penal Code in the North. We have Criminal Code in the South, and in the North we have Penal Code. Two different laws for one state. Who did all these things? Who designed all this? Okay, let's continue. Under Nigerian law, treason generally includes levying war against the state. So already, these terrorists that have been captured, that are levying war against Nigeria, they are already committed treason. There is no way you can give them any pardon. They have committed the treason. There are evidences here and there that they are claiming people burning churches. That is treason. Having said that, attempt to overthrow the government, that is people that commit coup, that one is there on its own. That is treason. Then the another part of it is assisting enemies of the state, just like I said earlier. It's okay. You give weapon to these people that are killing us. You are assisting them. You have already committed treason. How can you assist people that are killing Nigerians? It is treason on its own. That is what the law says. If you say that the enemies that are attacking Nigeria, that they should be pardoned, it means that you are aiding and abetting treason, which is treason on its own. So you see, well, having said that, let me not, bore you guys with so much talk, but at least I've explained what the law says about treason. Well, I am still Chinedu, your presenter. Until I come your way next time, bye for now. Don't forget to click the notification bell after you subscribed. Drop your comment and let's interact in the comment section. Thank you.